Hey guys, so let's talk about priming. So the last video we talked about preparation, which is really just sanding and washing of the parts. Now priming is really where we start laying the foundations for the colour and for the paint to bind to the model. So the way I approach it is basically what's the colour outcome you want for priming. And then you can choose the colour of primer because there's various different colours of primer out there. There's white, there's grey, and there's also black as well. Now I'll talk about black later in another video because that's quite handy for doing metallics that are alloys and chrome finishes. We'll talk about that later. But before we go that far, it also depends on what colour you're after. Like I'll give you a case in point is if you're doing something like an Italian exotic car like a Ferrari or even a Ducati. Obviously their iconic colour is red, and it's that real rich blood red that those manufacturers are known for. So it's important to get the base colour on the primer right as well. So Ferrari are known to use on the older cars to use a pink primer. Ducati do as well, I believe. And that's how you get that. This is a Ferrari 312T of Niki Lauda's, and you can see here that's a very rich blood red on there. The only way I got that real rich colour was to use a pink primer. So of course pink primers aren't readily available, so what you do, you just mix the colour red and white for a base colour. So sometimes you might have to do three coats or even four, depending on how you do it. In that particular case there, I did a white base because that Ferrari's got red and white, so the white base went on nice, and then you mask and then you do the pink. The pink, I just actually used Tamiya LP lacquers. I'm a big lacquer user, not exclusive, but use lacquers a lot, and just mixed up a pink colour out of that, and that really just formed the base layer for it. So it served two purposes. Yes, there was a primer already on, which I actually happened to use this stuff, but then there was a colour primer as well, which is what I used as well, and that worked really well, and that gives that really rich blood red that in this particular case that Ferrari car was known for. Of course the newer model Ferraris and that stuff that you see racing today, different colour red again. They quite often are matte or metallic depending on the race and that stuff, so I wouldn't worry too much about those cars for now. So yeah, and that will help you dictate the overall base colour. A case in point also is that Britain motorcycle I just finished as well. There was two different colours of primers I used there. The blue, the metallic blue, I used a grey primer for that, and that darkened the blue out because I actually used I used the nail lacquers, believe it or not, to get that blue with a lacquer. This is grey as the base. The pink, which is that real hot pink, I used a white base primer to get it on. And so all you're doing really is you're just spraying it on like a normal spray thing. So what we'll talk about now is how you apply it. So if you're doing cars, by the way, I don't use a lot of those stands that Tamiya use, and you can buy a stand and you sort of plug it in and it has little closets to pop outwards. I like them, they're good, but I prefer to use this. So this is essentially just an old coat hanger, bent around with a bit of blue tack on the inside. Now the reason why I do that is because I can do this. You can't do that easily with those Tamiya stands, because it's kind of designed to sit on a base and you just spin it around, which is okay. But when you come to do top coats and clear coats, quite often you're getting quite heavy handed with it, and to stop runs you can just walk around and do that, and that stops the runs on the paint as well. So and it helps level it out a lot easier. It's a bit of a trick, right? So to paint the cars, treat it the same as like a normal auto painter would do today on a real car. As generally you'd start with all the little details first. As you grab your airbrush, drop your primer in there, and then you'll be going under the guards, around the front, all the spoiler and the splitter, and maybe around the window arches and that kind of stuff. The bits that you normally won't hit with a general just spray over top like that. Okay. Now the reason why you do that is as you're spraying over top of that, you might start getting a bit too heavy under the wheel arches if you do it afterwards. So usually do that first, and it helps level it out a bit more too. So go across and then you spray. I quite often use this brush, which is a Badger Matrix. And if I'm doing a bigger job, I'll just swivel it around and put a pot in there for a larger job. Very nice airbrush. If you're using a single action brush, same sort of thing. These here, you instead of using double action where you can sort of adjust the spray as you're going in here, you can sort of have a lot less spray. You can use this one here, like a single action unit. This is my trusty 200, which you just have to adjust it manually on the back there. Okay, it's kind of a choke system, but that works really well as well. And the pressure I normally spray it is for primers, usually a little bit higher, because these particularly these microfiller primers, which are designed to fill up all the little gaps and stuff, are a little bit thicker. So I usually spray it around 18 to 20 psi. Okay, and it's good to do it in a ventilated room. So like I'm using a little spray booth there, which is, as you can see, is very dirty. Well, it's actually not dirty. It's actually got a lot of overspray on it. And that keeps all the fumes and that stuff away, and put a mask on as well. So spray across there and inside all the nooks and crannies until you've got the color that you want, whether you're doing a pink primer or a white primer or a grey primer, whatever. Once you've got it right, let the primer dry. The primer dry time is generally around 24 or 48 hours, depending on the conditions, the weather and that stuff. Some people don't like to paint like in the winter time because it's so cold. I'm fortunate enough where my workshop is a nice little sort of enclave cabin. I can paint all year round, so other people can't, so I just sort of work it there. The other thing too is you can get primer in spray cans, like rattle cans and that stuff. I don't generally use that, but you can. Tamiya probably in that case would have the best primer in spray cans. If I was to use a spray can, I would decant it and chuck it in a spray in a bottle like this, and then just work with it then. If you're going to do decanting, there's plenty of videos on YouTube about how to do it. Just give it plenty of time to gas out. All right, otherwise you're going to have a bit of a problem, a bit of a mess afterwards. Once you've got the primer nice and dry and hardened and that stuff, then you can start on getting the sanding, because you've still got to sand your primer, get it smooth, because if you've got a little bit of orange peel and that stuff later on, as the primer goes through, you're going to need to sand it smooth for your color coats and then your clear coat. I almost exclusively use clear, and then different types of clear coat, which I'll get into that later, because that'll dictate the kind of finish that you want as well. And by the way, not all cars have a beautifully glossy clear coat. I do a lot of period cars, like post-war, pre-war cars, which you don't generally see those with real super glossy clear coats. They're usually either a matte or a satin finish, but we'll get into that later on down the track as well. So hopefully you found that useful. Fire through any questions that you have in my chats down the bottom and comments. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you guys about it, and let's see if we can keep the dialogue going. Talk soon. Bye.